All right, we'll get started here. So good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today. This session is being recorded, so if you're unwilling or unable to be part of the recording, you may drop off now. I'm planning to go for about 25 minutes, so it's definitely not going to be a very long affair. My name is Ismail Nalwala, and I'm the CEO of IOTAP based out of the DC metro area. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. I have the presentation open here. My company, IOTAP, is a Microsoft Cloud Solutions partner, and Work 365 is the application that we've built on Dynamics 365, Dynamics CRM for cloud services companies like us, actually. So a quick look at our agenda today. I'm going to be talking about recurring revenue and billing best practices, right? I'll also share some updates on the upcoming 2.5 release and what you can expect there. So I know some of you are going to be, I can see from the audience, some of you are brand new to Work 365. And for those that are already using the system, hopefully you can see what the new version will add for you in terms of features and benefits. I'll also be doing a couple of polls through the presentation, so I request your participation. There's 2 polls, and so whenever it comes up, please be sure to vote. All right. So getting to the basics, right? Subscription economies are growing. You're here because you want to sell subscriptions, possibly, and manage recurring revenue. Companies like Microsoft, Adobe have themselves gone through this shift and changed their business models to align with recurring revenue models. The reality is that a lot of businesses are shifting to this model as the concept of ownership is dying and customers now they really want to buy outcomes, not products, right? So some of this is not just about the CSP stuff, but also how we think about our services. Now we want to present our solutions to our customers. So we talked about subscription billing, which is important. What I also want to talk about is what is the criteria, right, for building a successful subscription business. This is a list I picked up from a company that I follow, Zuoro. This is actually from Zuoro's website on the 9 characteristics or criteria to build a successful subscription-based business. I'm not going to dwell on this for too long, but it's important to notice some of the key criteria and potentially start to map the requirements to the solution or the platform that you're either considering or already using, right? Things like pricing strategies, collecting cash quickly, being able to iterate through your offerings, using a system that helps you build and nurture relationships, generating accurate and intuitive invoices. These are all important things that successful subscription-based businesses must do. So if you hold on to some of these items in your mind, I will come back to them in a little bit at a later part of my presentation. So now we'll switch gears and take a look at the flow of data and the traditional sales models. Right, this is a picture really of a traditional sales model implemented in most CRM systems. Somebody in sales creates a quote, which gets converted into an order. Maybe that order goes into an ERP system or an accounting system, or not, right? But then there's an invoice that's created through some means in the accounting system, and the salesperson may or may not have access to it, and may never be available, and this invoice may never really be available to your customers as well, right? This works okay when you have one-off items, and you're doing, sales of medium to large values, because you can afford the coordination and the effort between these various functions at that point. But subscription billing is very different, however. It has very different challenges. The primary and most fundamental item to keep in mind is that the recurring and subscription business models are built around scale, right? Subscription sales grow by adding customers, retaining these customers, and increasing the amount of revenue per customer through expansion, retention, and then expansion. As you can see here, there are multiple things going on, right? There are multiple billing dates. There's potentially different discounts across the board. Some customers want annual billing, some may want monthly billing. You want to allow customers to purchase on their terms, and giving them these sort of options is what creates great customer experience, right? So what we're going to do now is compare that waterfall model in that traditional sales cycle to what happens with subscription-based billing, right? It is very different. Every interaction is a potential revenue event with an invoice. Every change needs to be tracked and managed. Customers want to have the ability to control their own services and manage their own services and subscriptions. So self-service becomes very important. A lot of companies, tend to do some of these things through spreadsheets. That is not practical at all. Subscription-based business models and services cannot be profitable without scale, and scale cannot be achieved really without any automation. So that's where a solution like Work 365 comes in, that allows you to scale and have that automated process around sales and billing. Right. Now, I wanted to share what I consider some of the billing best practices. These are the six items which I consider sort of top of the list for best practices around subscription-based billing. Firstly, you want to define what you're selling in your sales system. It is important to have your products, your prices in your system instead of, just creating them ad hoc during a quotation. It's not easy to define everything that you're selling, but it's important to do this. It's very important to also invoice in advance. A lot of partners, or maybe some, will wait for the reconciliation files from their distributor or Microsoft to invoice their customers. Those are really bills for you and not how you should be invoicing your customers. Your customer invoices should be based on service dates and pricing that you have established for them, right? So always bill in advance. Don't wait for the bill from your provider to generate an invoice for your customer. Provide options, right? This is what creates a good customer experience, like I mentioned. Whether they want to pay annually, quarterly, or monthly, make sure their billing dates align with their expectations, not when it's convenient to you. Sometimes partners will, establish a specific arbitrary date within their practice to say, we're going to bill on the 15th or the 1st. This is not typically when the service was initiated. You want to be able to give your customers the flexibility for when they receive the invoice, and how you want to invoice them. Should be based on when the service was provisioned. Accurate and timely invoices. Again, batching invoices is not a great idea. When we have a handful of invoices, and it's a manual process, the tendency is to do it all, on one specific day. Maybe pick a day or two in the week or the month to do it, but this is really not very scalable, right? The other thing is, the most meaningful metrics for your subscription business is not going to be addressed by GAAP and GAAP standards, really. For example, you need to value one-time revenue very differently than recurring revenue. You need to measure your business across multiple dimensions of time, right? Not just the past, like most folks look at financial performance based on what's happened in the past, but don't have a sense of how much future revenue is already booked. And that's what subscription businesses do for you. You need to be able to manage complex changes, right? That can create sometimes chaos in downstream processes. For example, mid-month subscription cancellations. they can result in credits and refunds, which impacts revenue recognition. And finally, what I suggest is not to overlook self-service. This is extremely critical as a way and means for your customers to manage their services, but also for you to allow an additional channel for sales. Customers can then purchase services on their own terms when they want to, right? I'm going to do a quick poll here, just to get a sense of how many of us are doing this. If you don't mind, just please submit your response here. The poll should be open now. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds or so. We've got maybe less than that. We've got about 50% of the folks that have voted. All right, I will now close this poll. See if we can share the results. So it looks like about 50% of the folks are using their product catalog and set things up in the product catalog. But most people haven't done that yet. So that's something that's a really good practice. It allows you to drive sales and pricing much more accurately. Thank you for that vote. All right, we'll continue here. So one of the things I wanted to show you here was, some of the ways in which you can set up your products. We talk about this a lot. This is the bundling strategy. This is one of the ways in which you can set up your products, which includes a combination of your items and some third-party items, along with, services or license-based products. This is a way for you to set that up in the CRM system, and then eventually include them in your quotes and orders for provisioning. There are other pricing strategies you can use as well, and they could include, tiered pricing. You could also set up your products directly in the catalog with a markup, so you don't have to really worry about setting up the full bundle. There are various pricing strategies and product setups, in ways in which you could set up your product catalog. All right, so I guess now is probably a good time for me to introduce Work 365 for those of you that are coming to the conversation for the first time. Work 365 is built on Dynamics 365 and includes 4 solution components. Subscription management, where you can define any type of subscription service, whether it's consumption, license, or service-based items. You can define price, terms, and billing frequencies. Self-service, this is built on Dynamics CRM portals, where your end customers can manage their own services and request changes. These changes then automatically flow back to your Work 365 system and get recorded as changes, and also get provisioned automatically. And of course, we have the e-commerce piece and the billing and invoicing side of things, where you can generate invoices on a consistently and timely basis every single day in an automated way, with proration adjustments and collect cash quickly too through payment integrations. All right, so going back to this list that we talked about earlier, which is around, all the 9 characteristics of how do you successfully set up a subscription-based or recurring revenue-based business. What I'm going to try to do is see if we can take these 9 criteria and see how Work 365 and the platform meets these needs. So if you can see now, those 9 items can be put in all the different buckets. Azure provides that reliable infrastructure. Dynamics provides the ability to nurture and retain relationships. And Work 365 provides the ability to create those invoices, collect cash, and develop those flexible pricing strategies. Bundling obviously is possible as well. You can set up multiple providers, multiple manufacturers, combining both usage and user-based pricing in your system. Right. So the reality is that using a combination of your dynamic CRM system and Work 365, we can meet those 9 specific criteria for building a successful subscription-based business. All right, I'm gonna talk a little bit about now what's coming in version 2.5. These are some of the core features and capabilities that are going to be available in version 2.5. First one I'd like to talk about is credit hold management, right? This goes back to our principle around tying the sales process to the financial process. In version 2.5, you will be able to leverage the credit hold feature on the account form to actually pause provisioning. When you have a new customer and you need to follow, say, a credit management process like collecting credit card information or other paperwork, the system will basically pause and not provision until the credit hold has been lifted. So this again creates that coordination, as I mentioned, between your sales, service, and finance team. You can also set the credit hold flag potentially automatically based on the outstanding invoices. So because the system has the invoices available, you may be able to, you can use a workflow to set the credit hold flag, which will again pause all the provisioning for the customer. This is new. This is coming out in version 2.5 shortly. The next item is billing and provisioning alignment. In the past versions, we've basically treated all the services and products as subscriptions that are priced on a monthly basis. So you would define your pricing primarily on a monthly basis, and then we would potentially multiply and divide if you were doing annual pricing. And sometimes this would lead to issues, right? Rounding errors and things like that. Now, basically what we're doing is we're integrating with the product catalog and making it truly flexible, where you can define your pricing at an annual level, and where you can define annual pricing and monthly pricing, and also provision and invoice without any of these rounding issues, and align correctly with annual, quarterly, and monthly pricing. Okay. Next is billing automation. Of course, this is really very important to us. In version 2.5, now will include these automated features where you'll be able to auto charge, auto sync, and of course, auto send was always there. So that means that especially for monthly customers, the invoice gets generated automatically. You're going to be able to immediately charge the invoice, sync it with your accounting system. So this should be a fully automated process now going forward. We're going to include sales tax. We basically have a sales tax service that'll include sales taxes on the invoices. There's going to be much better Azure cost and price visualizations directly on the subscription, right? So you'll be able to see the trends within the subscription itself. We've made a significant change to the jobs and architectural aspects of the product as well. Provisioning actually is going to become much faster. There'll be a lot more transparency in terms of how the automation is actually working for you to be able to see the jobs and the status of these jobs that are taking place, that are automating all your systems in the backend. And then finally, the quote to cash feature. This is one that we're very excited about, and I'll actually try to walk you through this in the next few slides. All right, so typically what happens, we sell something and then we want to invoice it. Now, I've mentioned this is an important feature for us. We've heard this feedback from a lot of partners where they want to use CRM to build a quote, create an order, and then drive the provisioning and service setup from the contents of the quote and the order. And then, of course, Work 365 generates that invoice to help you collect the cash. So if you think about it, these are all the various steps that you'd have to do, right? Basically, you create a quote, you convert that to an order. Either you're setting up the billing contract, if it's new, or adding subscriptions to an existing billing contract, or updating subscriptions to an existing subscription. And then eventually generating an invoice and collecting the money for it. Now, show you how this could potentially work. So we have an opportunity for this customer called Dancing Daisy, right? This includes two of these products. One is a bundle, and one is another service item, IP-based item that's included in this opportunity, right? So priced at $100, 5 quantity of this item. This is priced at $35, 50 quantities. Right, I might create a quote for this by transferring all those opportunity products directly into my quote. The customer is going to review the quote. The customer is going to sign off on the quote. Once the customer signs off on the quote, we create an order. And if you notice, this is the order form. And on the order form, you will see a button called Provision Order, right? What that means is everything that's in the order will now be provisioned automatically through this form that we're calling the quote to cash form, right? As you can see, as you click through the provision order button, you'll be presented with this form. This sort of becomes the salesperson's launch pad, right, on how to set up and provision these services. The system will then allow you to provision the tenant automatically if it needs to be provisioned. If the tenant provisioning exists and the provider relationship already exists, it's smart enough to know not to do that. If the billing contract already exists, the system will prompt you to let you add subscriptions to an existing billing contract. If you need to create a new one, the system will take all the details from the quote and the order to create the billing contract. And again, do the same thing with the subscriptions. Whether you need to add to existing subscriptions or create new subscriptions, the system will allow you to do that all through this one form, right? So this will really simplify the process, consolidate everything in one area, and take that information from the sales process and include it into the provisioning side of things as well. Right. So once you conclude and finish that process, the system will confirm all the different steps it has finished, which could include creating those different items, different subscriptions, provisioning them, and setting up the billing contract if needed. All right, so we're getting close to wrapping up here now. And then, this visual kind of is important for us to convey that Work 365 is the glue. And this is what provides the coordination between the sales and the billing side of things. What you have in your quotes and your orders, as I mentioned, gets invoiced. And whatever gets invoiced is visible to your sales team and your customers. And so, at the core of it, it allows you to scale your business and grow your recurring revenue. I have one more poll. We are going to be at Inspire in July. And I just want to get a quick sense of how many folks in the audience are planning to attend. That's great. I'll just give it another 10, 20 seconds. Well, thank you for your responses. I'm going to close this poll. I'll share it so we know how many partners are planning to attend. Looks like there's a good mix between folks that are definitely attending and currently not attending. Thank you. All right. So this concludes my presentation today. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. We are going to be at Inspire. So if you're attending Inspire, I'd love to see you at our booth. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us over email or through our Yammer site. And with that, I'll just open it up for questions. So, okay, I already have some questions here. Okay, yes, thank you. When will we be releasing version 2.5? So version 2.5 is definitely going to be out in May, before the end of the month. We're thinking probably the 3rd or 4th week of May, so in another week or two, most likely the week of the 20th of May. Oh, sorry, the 20, yeah, the later part of the week of the 20th. How do you invoice these services ahead of receiving the bill statement from the provider? So that's another question. Yeah, so that's a great question, actually. So we're basically, when you set up your services and your subscriptions, Work 365 allows you to invoice them. You're not dependent on the invoice from your provider, because that is just something that you use to provision the services. Once you set up your subscriptions in Work 365, the invoice automatically gets generated ahead of time in advance. And obviously, this is much easier seen in a demonstration. So I can do that for you at some point. Another couple of questions here. Will the provision order capability control through security roles? Yes, absolutely. The provisioning of the order will be controlled through security roles. It'll be based on the sales role. So anything sales and higher will be able to have that role. So admin and sales will both be able to do that. So regarding quote to cash, can sales create a quote to add remove quantity to an existing subscription? Absolutely, yes. Sales will be able to do that. That's the whole point of this. You will be able to add quantities to an existing subscription as well without actually having to create a brand new billing contract. Basically, it's going to be smart enough to know whether you need to add to an existing subscription, and it'll give you the option to pick that. That's right. I know I'm going through these a little quickly. If I'm not answering them completely, please let me know. Will I be sending out the slide deck to attendees? So we don't send out the slide deck. Some of these presentations are available through our YouTube channel. So please subscribe there. And if you're an existing user, all the presentations are available through the Help and About section of the application. Okay, just let me see if I got more questions. So I have some other questions which are around specific topics around the portals. So I'll cover, we'll take the portal discussions offline here and talk about them over email if possible. Will I share today's recording? Yes, today's recording will be shared. It will be, as I mentioned, on our YouTube channel, and it'll be available through our recordings on the Help and About as well. Okay, give it another couple of minutes to see if there's more questions. All right, thank you very much for all your questions and for making the time. I look forward to speaking to you over email and in person if we need to do another demonstration. Thanks again. Bye-bye. We'll be closing the session here for everybody and stop the recording.